So when faced with a major setback or roadblock, most new entrepreneurs or business owners usually blame it on circumstances outside of their control and just give up. But today I have on the show someone different, not your typical entrepreneur. His name is Brian Williams. He's an eBay dropshipper. He has a YouTube channel. He has a pretty awesome Instagram account. And if you follow him, you know that he never gives up and keeps pushing through no matter what. So I wanted to bring him on the channel and get an idea from him what it is that motivates him, what it is that drives him. And of course, we're going to dive into his backstory, hear how he got started with making money online. So without further ado, Brian, what's up, man? I'm so glad that you decided to join us.
Paul, thanks for having me, man. This is pretty awesome, to be honest. This is really cool. I'm super excited. I actually got the chance to meet Paul at one of his meetups, and I actually found out about Paul through one of my friends who had gotten one of his courses, and I actually had the privilege to go out and buy his course too, and I couldn't have said how happy I was just to get it and how much it helped improve my drop shipping game on eBay. And Paul actually held a meetup, and that's where I met Paul, and he's been an awesome dude. Just connect with him every once in a while and talk to him about eBay dropshipping and just how I can improve my store and just become, better day by day.
Well, thanks for that, Brian. I really appreciate it. And it was great meeting you at the meetup. We're going to be having more of those coming up. So if you're interested in those, anyone who's watching, stay tuned, because I'll be making some announcements about those in the future. That was great. That was great meeting everyone. Wouldn't you say, like, just hanging out with everyone, finally putting faces to people's names was pretty awesome for me.
I think it was great. Sometimes it can be pretty, lonely when you're in this business and you don't have that many people to connect to. So when you get the option to meet other entrepreneurs and just like-minded business individuals who have like the same goals, the same ideas as you, it's really inspiring. And those types of people I like to be around because sometimes they can be hard to find. So it was a really awesome meetup. I learned a lot, got to meet a lot of people, and I had a really great time.
Yeah, I agree. Are there a lot of people in your life who have kind of the same mindset as you to be an entrepreneur?
So it's like a hit or a miss. I have like a couple of friends, maybe one or two at work, who have a strong entrepreneurial spirit. I got one of my buddies, Jeremy. He's a good friend of mine. He is doing his own landscaping company right now, and he's doing phenomenal. And I applaud him every day because it's super hard to get a company up and off the ground with no blueprint, no formal training, no insider knowledge about how to run a business. And he's been able to do that, and it's been really inspiring. And I think having more people around me like that just helps push me that much further. So he's one guy who I talk to on a daily basis, and we talk business, and just keeps me motivated.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's get into your backstory, because people might not know who you are. So I gave a brief intro, but why don't you tell people more about who you are, and then maybe you can go back and tell how you got into all this.
Awesome. All right. Where my entrepreneurial journey began. So I was pretty much in high school, and it's actually a crazy story. I had loved designing. I don't know if you guys ever get a chance to check out my Instagram page, but I learned a lot of those skills when I was in high school. And I was really fortunate to have some really good mentors and teachers around me that taught me graphic design. A lot of individuals who taught me how to brand myself pretty well. So I was fortunate enough to learn this in the early stages within high school. So when I first got started as being an entrepreneur, was in high school when I wanted to create a type of T-shirt or a different type of brand, and I had always been really good at drawing. So I thought it would be cool to create a T-shirt. And a guy that I know who was in a band had just created his first T-shirts for his band, and I was like blown away. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. You just put a design on a shirt. Like, how do I do that? Like, that's really cool. And for a while, he was holding back his secret. He wouldn't tell me. He was like, nah, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you where I got it from. And I'm like, why, man? Like, I just want to do the same thing. It looks cool. Like, can we both do it? And he was just like, no, for like the longest time. eventually he gave up his secret, and I learned right away like where to go to get these t-shirts done. So I don't know if I was always a go-getter, but like this just drove me like to go get it done. I was so like ambitious about this. I was like, man, I really want to do this. So I went down and I talked to the t-shirt printing company, and they talked to me about how much it was going to cost. And the price I think was around like $250 or $300. And I was like, whoa, you know, like 16, like I had a part-time job at Taco Bell. I was like, all right, how am I supposed to come up with this money to like pay for all this stuff? So I was like, all right. So I worked for like a month and a half, 2 months straight, and I just saved up everything I had. And I put that all towards like these t-shirts and this design that I created. And what I did, I talked to the guys, and they got the t-shirts done. I think it was in about 2 weeks. So I got this box of t-shirts, and I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to bring them to school, and I'm going to see if I can like sell them. So I would carry around this box of t-shirts with me going through the whole school. And everybody was like, what's in the box? What's in the box? And I'd show them, and they'd be like, whoa, like that's pretty cool. And it was just a t-shirt that I had designed, and it went over really well. I sold every single shirt in like a matter of 2 days.
That's amazing. Do you still have that shirt somewhere?
I have a couple of them. Yes, I do.
That'd be cool to see a design. You should post it to Instagram.
Yeah, I would definitely be about that. That sounds awesome, Paul. So that's kind of how I got into my entrepreneurial journey. But later on, like I had dabbled in a bunch of other things. So one of the main things that really got hard for me was definitely getting traffic. So as I started to create new t-shirts and I started to build up my brand when I was in high school, it got hard to get out of my high school. So I was really dominant within the high school, but like trying to market outside of that was like incredibly tough. I had like the hardest time. I just could not gain any traction. So I kept trying and trying, and unfortunately, the money I had started to invest in it, it just wasn't working. So I had done this I tried it again in college and about 2 more other times. And I had figured like, oh, maybe people just don't have money. Oh, maybe people are just like not interested in these ideas anymore. Oh, you know, and I was just like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So I'd always constantly be trying to change something or like alter it or test a new market and stuff, but it just wasn't gaining traction like it did in high school. So that's how I first started learning about marketing and like the power of getting involved in a community before you sell something to them. So that was one of the biggest like key things that I had learned. So I realized later on in life, like the people that bought from me was because they knew me and they trusted me and they liked everything that I had created. So when you go out and you're trying to do this in like, you know, the real world with like none of that behind you, no trust factor, no like friendship factor, it gets really tough. So that's one of the key things that I started to learn. So after the t-shirts, I dabbled in something else. A friend of mine approached me and he was just like, hey man, I got this really cool idea. And I was like, yeah, sure, what's up? Because he had known that I had created t-shirts. I'm sorry. Alexa, stop. I got Alexa going on in the background. But he approached me and he was like, hey man, I want to create a video game with you and I want to do an app for it. And I was like, oh crap, that sounds amazing. I was like, yeah, let's do it. That's totally cool. So I hopped on board with that, and we worked on it for about a whole year. And this story gets pretty crazy. So I did this video game for about a year, and it was called Bust a Nut. It was so cool. It was about this. It was on Android, and it was about this squirrel who had to just. It was like a runner. So like the squirrel would just keep running, but it used every aspect of the phone. So you'd have to hold it vertical, and it would climb up a tree. And it would dodge axes and all these other obstacles, and on top would be a lumberjack. And a lumberjack was like holding this female squirrel captive and was like threatening to like burn down your forest and like cut off all the trees. It was pretty cool. It's kind of like a playoff Sonic the Hedgehog with like a squirrel. So like that's how we went about it. And the squirrel was able to fly, and he was also able to run. So we got really far with this game, but like halfway through it, we started changing like the design concepts, and it got really hard. So for 2 people creating an indie game, it is extremely difficult. But here's the really cool stuff about it. So I started getting into the marketing again with this, and I was like, okay, like we got this game. It's like 3/4 of the way done. Like it's time for me to bring this out to the public. So what I started to do was I started to approach indie developers and indie communities, and I actually had the privilege of going to, oh my gosh, it was like an indie developer conference, and you were able to pitch your game or app idea at this conference, and it was amazing. So Xbox was there, PlayStation was there, Nintendo was there, Microsoft was there. It was amazing. The VR sets were there. They were brand new at the time. These guys were just coming out with Facebook's VR headset. They had some of the first ones I had ever seen, and it was so cool. This was in New York City, Paul. It was at oh my gosh, the Museum of the Moving Image. I can't remember what it is, but like that's where we first started to pitch this. So I went in there and we sat through all the conferences, and I got to listen to all these keynote speakers from PlayStation to Microsoft to Nintendo. And then on the last day, we were offered an opportunity to sign up to give a 5-minute pitch about our game. So I had worked that whole night because I didn't expect this to happen, but I worked that whole night creating a presentation to showcase like this whole thing, because I was like, oh my god, this is going to be on an app. Like, how am I supposed to get the phone out to everybody? So I was like, all right, so they got this like projector, and I was like, okay, I can maximize like the potential of this if I just show what the game does and like how it works and stuff. So I created this awesome projection about how everything worked in the game, what it looked like, all the characters, all the different designs, all the concepts and everything, and we pitched it, and it went well. Nintendo pulls me off to the side, one of the directors from Nintendo, and he goes, how long till you guys finish this game? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, really? You work for Nintendo? You want to like look at this game? And he's like, I'm serious. I still have his card and everything. So he's like, yes. And the reason, and I learned this later, was because the market for indie developers on Nintendo was very small at this time. So they were trying to get as many indie developers in as possible. It's a little bit bigger now, not as big as like your Microsoft or your PlayStation, but it's getting bigger. And they're dominating this market, and now with the Nintendo Switch, it's only going to get even bigger. But when I was coming in, Nintendo Switch wasn't out yet, and neither were a lot of these games for the indie developer market. Yeah, so we created this game, and we got to pitch it, but we just fell short on it, and we just never finished it. And I was like, oh my god, like I still get asked about this all the time. Like, what happened to your game? What happened to your game? And I'm like, we still got it. I just never released it. It was like we had to learn a whole programming language. It got really complicated. So we set that off to the wayside. So I decided to like relax for a little bit, and I was like, maybe entrepreneurial stuff isn't for me, but like I always had like this really strong grasp on it, and I just really wanted to pursue it. And like I knew, when riding a bike or anything else like that, it's gonna take a few times. You're gonna fall, and you're gonna like not make it to where you want to go. So knowing that, I was like, you know what, I just can't give up on this. Like I see the potential of it. I see like the freedom it offers. And I was just like, I really want to do this. And like, you only get one shot at life. And I was like, I just want to do something with my life that I'm going to look back and I'm just going to tell my kids. I'm just like, yeah, I tried this. Like I failed at it, but I did do it. Like I messed up here, but I tried it. I did not like hold myself back at all. I went as hard as I could, doing whatever I wanted to do, trying to make things work. And just like pushing myself as much as I could. Like I did this, I tried. So like I always felt like that was something to keep yourself motivated. Like just try it. Like what do you got to lose, And I was never the type of kid to like, feel embarrassed over anything. I was just like, you mess up, like things happen. So you just got to keep pushing. So, I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself sometimes, then like, you're taking yourself too seriously. You just got to push. Like, who cares? Like nobody's going to remember this. Like everybody's thinking about themselves anyway. So like, whatever. So like, long story short, I gave myself a rest for a little bit, and I just got to drive again at some point. So at one point I was just sitting in college, and I had learned like, Gary Vaynerchuk came out, and he was doing this thrifting idea, and I was like, that sounds like a good idea. Tell
everyone who Gary is if they don't know.
Gary Vaynerchuk is a loud, outspoken entrepreneur. He's really awesome. He goes AWOL a lot, but like he is one of the most motivational speakers, like one of the most inspirational people you can ever listen to. If you ever feel self-doubt, or like, you're down on your luck, or like you feel like, you just don't have it in you, put on Gary Vee. He's going to change your whole perspective. He's going to make you want to go that much further. And he just makes you think. Like one of the craziest like videos I think I ever saw of him was like, he's like, you know how lucky you are to be alive? He's like, you could have been a plant. You could have been like an elephant. You could have been like, you know, some minuscule object or like, you know, insect or animal within this world, but you're a human. Like, do you know how crazy that is? And like, that always like sticks in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, like this guy is 100% right. Like, when do I ever sit back and I'm just like, wow, I beat the odds. Like I'm an actual person, you know, like it barely ever happened. So I always thought that was amazing. And that just got to me one day. He knows how to get inside you and turn on that switch to activate you to do something and try your hardest at something. And that's why Gary Vaynerchuk is somebody that I like. And I don't care if other people are just like, oh, he's, you know, he talks too much. He's not on track with everything. Like, I don't think that's what his main purpose is. I think it's just to drive you. So I think his, you know, key things that Gary Vaynerchuk does are to give you inspiration, to push you forward. He shows you what he's done, and like he's just trying to show you, like, look, like I built this with nothing, like you can do it too, and I'll be here to push you and motivate you. So like that always got to me, and I was like, man, this guy is awesome. So I started watching Gary Vaynerchuk's like thrifting. I think it was 2016 or 2017, and I started it. So I got a few apps and I learned how to buy and sell certain items. So I started getting good at it. And I learned how to buy items off Facebook Marketplace, and it was brand new at the time. Facebook Marketplace was just coming out, so I was like, oh, this is an untapped market. I was never comfortable with Craigslist. You never know what you were going to get. You couldn't see the person. I never knew if I was going to get scammed. But with Facebook Marketplace, you could see that person's profile picture. You could see it ahead of time. You knew what you were going to get. So I was like, okay. So I found a couple of apps, and they taught me the value of items before I went to buy them. So if I found a buyer who had an item that I saw that was well sought out and that had a price point that was less than what it sold for, I went out and I bought it. So that's what I started to do. I started picking up toys. I started buying a lot of Apple TVs. A lot of people weren't buying the Apple TVs, and I started picking those up, and I drive to like New Jersey. I would drive to Connecticut, all over New York. I would just drive all over buying all these different types of items. And then I would resell them on eBay. So that just kind of got me started with my entrepreneurial journey on eBay. After, you know, a short amount of time, I was like, all right, this is working. But, you know, it was tedious. Like you'd make like, you know, $15 a day, like $20 here. If you were lucky, I had to negotiate prices. Sometimes people would flake out. So you'd be like doing all this all the time. So I was like, all right, like I like doing this, but it's just taking up a lot of time. So I learned shortly after that, like fire sticks were becoming like super popular, and I actually learned how to make and sell fire sticks. So I was like, all right, so fire sticks would be cool. So we'll not make them, but like download all the programs and stuff on them. So I was like, all right, people don't know how to do this. So I started, you know, helping people with the fire sticks for a while. And then with that, I kind of like built up a reputation as somebody who knew like how to market and sell things. So my dad had known this guy who was working with cars, and he actually owns a towing company. So my dad's like, oh, you know, maybe I can hook you up with him and you can just sell for them on the side. So I was like, yeah, that sounds totally cool. So he introduced me to the guy, and my dad's like, oh, yeah, you'll just be selling, like, headlights and grill parts and stuff like that. So as soon as I meet the guy's like, yeah, I got a $65,000 wrecker I want you to sell. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. So he's like, yeah, I need this sold, like, ASAP. And I was like, oh, my God, like, $65,000. So I was like, this is crazy. So I just got on the computer, and I just entered all these like towing company groups, and I started calling every single day, like all these tow companies based out of every single state. I would grab the phone book and I was like, yo, I got this wrecker, like get all the specs from it. I would call him up. I'd be texting him at the same time, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? And he would text me right back, and he would just be like, all right. So I just like negotiate all these like deals and stuff. And I got lucky enough to actually get a buyer. And it happened to be through eBay, actually. The buyer was from Miami, and they wanted to buy it right away, and I sold it within 1 week. So $65,000, a record. And I made about 4% profit on that, which I was amazed by that. Like, like I didn't know how much to charge. I didn't know how much it was worth. I'm like, I don't know. Like, yeah, 4% will work. Like, I'll do that. So it was cool. I came home with like a few grand and I was like, this is amazing. So like, that's how it got me started with that. Later on, how I got involved with eBay dropshipping. At this point, I had like set up a pretty successful eBay store, and I'd already established myself on eBay. I wanted to get involved in something that would give me a freedom lifestyle, and I was looking for something where I could just work on a computer and then I could just like travel the world. Like that's one of my biggest things. Like I want to travel, I want a freedom, and I just want to roam, and just like do a bunch of crazy stuff. I actually got my store up and running, and not shortly after, I got a successful store and started to brand myself and just, just show everybody who I was. And I had some trouble in the beginning, just like everybody else. I couldn't get pricing right. I was having issues figuring out suppliers. I was having issues like figuring the whole concept out. I really didn't know how it worked. Like, there's like a couple of things that, that help you get forward that just come with like courses and time and just like commitment. So that's what I would say. So like that helped me push my store forward. And then probably in October or September, one of those months, I actually did my best month ever. And I did over $100,000 in sales. And I was probably at one of your meetups at that time. And I was just showing everybody, I was like, yes, I finally got here. Like, I feel awesome. So, yeah.
Awesome. So I'm just curious for a second, because you were doing things like you were selling this wrecker, you were selling other things on eBay. So is the reason you switched just because you wanted something that was more location independent?
Yes. Like, that's been a big driving factor for me. Like, I loved selling the wreckers and like just buying and selling things. I had a blast doing it, but like it was very time consuming, and I just wanted the freedom lifestyle to be able to travel. I think that's one of my biggest dreams with my entrepreneurial journey. I just really want to travel the world.
Nice. So would you say that's like your why? Why
yeah,
you do this?
That's definitely totally my why. There's so much out there I want to see, and if I feel like if I'm working a 9 to 5, or like for my instance right now, a 2 to 4, 2 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single day, like I'm having a tough time like getting all over the place to go see everything. So I'm like, so.
And how do you keep going?
I just want that. I just have that drive, man. Like I just have the why in the back of my head. So like a couple of things that drive me. So my wife I actually just got married in August of this past year, and my wife has a pretty crazy restaurant schedule. And sometimes it aggravates me, and I'm like, like, how can I make this easier for both of us? Because she works a lot on the weekends, and I'm just like, man, I'm trying to like, make things easier for us. And my job comes with a lot of benefits. It has healthcare, it has a 401k. I have the TSP retirement program. There are a lot of good things that my job offers. So it wouldn't be beneficial for me to leave my job right now. So I try to figure out what I can do to increase our time together. And one of the main things that I can do is just really go as hard as I possibly can on this business to try to, get that time eventually with her. So overall, I know that starting a business and, creating something that is more, that's more not based off location, but like can move around with me, that it'll create more time with us. So that's one of my driving factors.
I know once you started dropshipping, you had some setbacks even with that after you got going and started to see success. So do you want to tell everyone what happened, or you not want to talk about it?
Yeah, man, I'm totally open. I'll talk about whatever. I don't really care. So like, yeah, certain things that like knocked me off. So one of the biggest issues that recently just happened. So there was the MCO11 restriction that happened on my small store, which really freaking sucked. So what happened was I had just created a $100,000 like eBay store, and I was really excited about that. I figured like I knew a majority of the things that it took to get going on eBay and to stay established and to start turning a revenue. So I was like, okay, like now the next smart move to do would be to build another store. And I did. And the store was fine. Like, it was working, everything was going smooth, and there were really no issues like to date on it. Looking back on it now, what I think I should have done differently, maybe started off going slower. So that was one of my main things. I think I pushed it too hard. I was like, yes, like I know the strategies now. I know the concepts. I just want to like push this as fast as I can to get it going. And I think that gets into your head once you start to become successful. You're like, okay, like you don't need to take the pace that you think you originally did, but you really should. So like the story goes, slow and steady wins the race. And that's how you learn. So the second store, it was going good. I think I got it up to like 30,000 in about like a month and a half. And then I was negotiating with another software company, and we were getting ready to sponsor me. And like I was in all these cool like programs and stuff. And I was like, man, this stuff is starting to work. This is having potential here. Like this may actually work. So then all of a sudden, like eBay hits me up one day and they're like, yeah, your store's done. And I'm just like, what? Like they're like you're a small store. I got hit with the MCO11, and they're asking for all these like, you know, receipts and everything. And I'm just like, all right, like I can do this. I can get all the information they're requiring. I'm like, I'm not worried about this. Like it'll blow over. So I try and I try and I try, and this is going on for like a month and a half, and like we're getting like nowhere. And I find out that this store just can't be restarted. It's just done. So I let the store like fall to the wayside. I'm really angry at this time, but I get this awesome email that says you can keep your main account. So I took it as a grain of salt. I was really bummed. I was like pissed, but I was like, all right, I still got this main account, so let me just keep pushing it. So my main account, a lot of things started going problematic with it. So there were these changes that came in, and oh my God, they were so annoying. So then they started increasing the 4% penalty fees that got on top of your returns if you had too many orders that were like returned or like items not as described. And that was a big thing I brought up at your meeting. And I was just like, oh, I was so upset by this because there was no real way to combat it unless like you could either take a loss on those items at the time or increase your overall profit margin to a certain percent, which would decrease your sales and like decrease your profit altogether. So it was like a lose-lose situation all around. That really stung. I got hit with that for like another 2 months, and I'm like, crap, like I'm still like, I'm floating here, but like I'm like slowly going underwater, and I'm just like, oh my God, like how did I go from like this high up to like back here again? And I'm just like, I've been here before. Like I'm just prepared for this. I'm just like, whatever, like now it's like sink or swim. So I'm just like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to give up, and I'm just going to stop. So on my phone, I have this like cool thing that I plugged in there one day when I was talking to my wife, and she's been like my rock and just like pushing me forward like 10 all the time. And it says on there, it says like, you can take a break, but don't quit. And I have don't quit in like huge letters because that seems to like be the downfall for everybody. And I get it. Like everybody's like, oh my God, they just get too tired. They get frustrated. They like lose too much money. They like have too much skin in the game, and they're hurt. And I get it. But like in the long run, what I've come down to is just understanding like take a break. Like just put it aside, take a break, take a deep breath, and come back to it. Because sometimes that's all you need. Just don't give up on it. Like you may be like losing money, but like look, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like you gotta learn this and like see the potential that it's gonna offer you in the future. Like this is a platform. It's not going anywhere. There's gonna be new changes that'll get you to where you want to go. So understanding that and like talking to her, and like I'd be like, oh my God, you know, like babe, I think I gotta quit. Like I think we're like losing too much here. And she'd be like, just wait till the end of the month. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I think I really gotta get out this time. Like I'm really not trying to like lose this much money. She'd be like, just wait. And I'm just like, I look at my phone, it's like, don't quit. And I'm like, oh, all right, let me sit back, and I'm like, I'll come back to it, and then like we'll get going again, and then like a milestone will happen. I'm like, yes, I'm turning profit again. Oh my God, finally. And then something will happen, and I'm like, babe, I gotta quit. I gotta get out. And this happened like 3 times in a row, and she was just like, just shut up, sit back, put your head down, think about it, don't quit, and rest and keep going. So like that really helped me. Like just having her being able to talk to me and just like, push me forward and just keep me motivated and just like being the foundation that I needed to realize, like, sometimes you get lost and you're just like, you don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to embarrass everybody else. And you don't want to come down as somebody who was like arrogant or too cocky and like show offish. And I know sometimes I can come off like that, but it's just me being happy about where I am. And I'm just like, I'm really excited. Like I'm looking at the potential that I can offer everybody else in the future. And I know it comes off as arrogant and like conceited probably, and just like it can be viewed in the wrong way, but just like, no, my intentions are good. And like I am just trying to do the best I can so that I can give back when I get to a point where I'm just like, okay, I made it here and now I can give back like so much more. So in my mind, I have goals that I'd like to accomplish and like ways I'd like to give back and like help everybody else. So when you're up on this, like, you're making moves and like you got people who are like hitting you up, messaging you like, oh, how do I get here? How can I grow my business as big as yours? And I'm trying to give them all these insights. And then in the background, my business is like getting hit hard and you're trying to swim through all these obstacles and like still help people. So it gets kind of hard. So I stuck with it and I kept going with it. And then this past month again, I'm definitely not doing as many sales as I was. I was up to 100,000, I think. This past month I'm under 50,000, but I'm still turning a profit. And I think that's the main thing that I took out of this. Like, okay, like it doesn't matter, the time and the commitment, it matters that you're putting into it. But like overall, what you're trying to achieve out of this is to generate profit. Every little bit helps. Doesn't matter if it's $5, doesn't matter if it's $10. Like that money is extra money that you can then use later on to help propel you in the future. So that's how I started to look at it. And like maybe the revenue stream isn't as good as $100,000 month when I took home like 3 to 4K. That was pretty awesome, but like it's still there. And I got to look at it as like a revenue stream that I started and there's potential to do it again. Just it's a learning process. So that's how I got to where I am and some of the obstacles I faced.
I follow you on Instagram and I don't think you come across as conceited at all. And it's, if you really think about it, it's the complete opposite, because you're putting yourself out there, and you kind of talked about this before. When something exciting happens to you, and I do the same thing on my Instagram, we like celebrate. We're like, oh my gosh, like look, this was an awesome month. But that's a very vulnerable thing to do, because then the next month, if you don't do as well, it can feel, in that moment when you're celebrating, there's always, at least for me in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, what if next month I don't do as well? Then it's almost like I'm embarrassing myself now because I set the bar too high almost, or people's expectations. So I think it's the complete opposite of being conceited.
I appreciate that, man. You're making me feel better. But yeah, I agree 100%, Paul, because like sometimes you never know like what's going to happen, like what tomorrow can bring. So like today you could be up, tomorrow you could be down, but overall you just got to keep pushing forward and just showcase as much as you can and just document everything. Like Tyler just started telling me about this, and I think it was an awesome thing to do. Like he pushed me back and he was just like, dude, you got to get back on YouTube. And I'm just like, dude, I'm like screwing up. Like I don't want to like help people and like promote myself when like I have these obstacles I'm going through. He's like, just tell people about it. And I was just like, oh my God, like you're so right. Like, and I'm just thinking in the back of my head, like, why did I stop? So like I made a commitment. Actually, you got me going again because you put out the book, the 12-week year. And every time you tell me to read a book, I do it. So I read the Grant Cardone 10X book too. So I didn't read it, but I have it on Audible, and every hour I spend in my freaking car driving to work, I have that thing going. So I do read everything you tell me to read. Every time you guys talk to me, I take it and I listen to it and I try to implement it. So I listen to everybody's guidance. I have no qualms. I'm an open book, and I'm only here to learn. People may know things that I don't know, and that 12-week yearbook opened me up to getting things done faster. So now I just want to show you, Paul, I got this stupid calendar that I have in front of me that I write everything down on so I can keep going. So that's how I'm keeping myself motivated. I'm checking my profits every day. and I'm just pushing myself forward. Like, how can I get to the next level? How can I push myself forward? And just being open, and I'm trying to document everything and just show people it's not all, sunshine and rainbows. Some days are really tough, but those days make you even better than the days where you're doing great. So that's how I keep pushing.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. So if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way they could do that?
Yeah, I have a YouTube account. My YouTube handle, I think it's called, is Hustle Williams. So if you type Hustle Williams, you can find me on there if you guys want to see some of my journey and like how my stores have been, where I'm at now, and I'm just gonna keep documenting everything I'm doing and just try to provide you guys with great insight on drop shipping. I'm moving into learning Amazon right now. Actually, a cool thing happened the other day. Ron Myers reached out to me and he was talking to me, so he's a really cool guy. So shout out to you, Ron. Thanks for, pushing me forward, and it's been really cool, man. Just like cool things are happening right now, so I'm happy about that. So he reached out to me. He's like, "Oh, I'll get you on the onboard with Amazon," and I'm like, "Yes, thank you," because like the amount of time that I have is like so limited. So I'm just like, I just need to learn this. Like, if you can show me, I will do this. So he was just like, "Yeah, I got you, I got you." So that was really cool. And I also have an Instagram account. So like, if you saw it today, well, actually, if you guys go on my Instagram, I just did a little behind the scenes with Paul before we jumped onto this. So I like to just show you guys like what I'm doing in my daily life, and like a little bit behind the scenes. So it's not like everything you're just getting out of YouTube all over again. It's like a little bit more. So it's a little bit in depth, and like a little bit of daily motivation I throw out there. And like, that's when I get to use all my cool filters on like my movie creator studio. So I like to just mess with stuff and put music on there. So
Awesome. Well, we'll have your YouTube linked up below, your Instagram linked up below. And you guys, you got to be following Brian. Make sure you also go into your settings on Instagram and make sure you get alerts when people go live, because Brian always goes live. You can ask him anything. I'm sure he'll answer any questions you guys have. He's
yes.
very open about that. But Brian, thanks so much for coming on, telling your story. I found it really inspirational. I think a lot of other people will as well. Do you have any last things you want to say?
If you guys are going through a struggle right now, just write down on a piece of paper, on your phone, on your laptop, like somewhere on your wall, on your mirror, on your fridge, somewhere, just like, don't quit, and surround yourself by people who are going to push you forward. I know everybody in this world is like trying to, oh, you're never going to make it, you're not going to do that. Like, let them talk. Like, just, you got this little ocean up here, and they say like your brain is like a boat, okay? And you're trying to keep this boat afloat. Don't sink your own ship, is how it goes, okay? So just stay positive, and like things will keep working as long as you stay consistent. Just keep trying. Like, maybe some things will change and you'll have to change with them, but just keep trying. That would be my number one thing to say and finish off with.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thanks so much again, and have a good one.
Gotcha, Paul. Thank you, man.